When working in a graveyard, it's very important to understand that you're not there to kind of preach your belief, to hold up what you think is the rule of the universe, or the code of the universe, or what God is. You're there to help the energies go where they need to go. When a person dies, the fragmentation of everything that they are, all these different pieces need to go different places. The spirit, which is the life force, we borrow from the earth. It needs to go back into the earth effectively, completely, without attaching itself to an identity. The ego is something that's very emotional but separate from the life force. The ego is something that can become what we might call a ghost if it's very attached to certain hatreds or passions or things like that, but it has to be very attached to stay here. But it still has a little bit of residual energy, even if it's not, full blown ghost. There's still a little bit of attachment there that needs to be processed as well and go, merge into the grander subconscious. Just as a spirit, the life force that we borrow from the earth must merge into earth. The soul itself, there's very few people who work in cemeteries or graveyards who are actually dealing with the soul itself. Because the soul cannot be nailed down to a single life. It must keep going. The whole reason that we age is because the soul is trying to go back to the source. But also, the vast majority of people working graveyards aren't going to be dealing with the soul. We're dealing with different fragments. I mentioned the spirit fragment, the ego fragment, and the soul fragment. So these are very obtuse and vague ways of referring to a whole bunch of fragmentation when somebody dies of who someone is. But it's useful for people who are, kind of still working on it mentally, or just trying to give them a basic understanding of it. So there's a whole lot of baneful work that you can do in graveyards or cemeteries. I highly recommend that you do a whole bunch of offerings of coins, of flowers, and of Christian prayers if it's a Christian graveyard. If not, you have to kind of cater your prayers to, whatever kind of grave you're working with. You have to cater your the prayers that you say or the offerings that you make to what evidence that you find on that grave. So if it's a Christian person, maybe Christian prayers, Muslim, Buddhist. And a lot of the time, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can use the kind of prayers that you know and the system that you have, but it's usually a good idea to at least try to work with a grave based on the evidence that you find upon it, whatever religion they might be a part of or whatever identity that they might have. It's good to begin your relationship with respect and understanding and, compromises. And the dead can't easily speak for themselves. So we have to figure out a way to be nice to them and accommodating to them in order for them to kind of open up whatever remains of that person to open up to working with us and working with the kind of work that we do, whether it be magic, whether it be shamanistic tendencies, or really trying to communicate with them. And it's very important if you're trying to communicate with the dead to make as many compromises as you can based on the information that you find in the grave. But as an individual who finds himself more spiritual than religious, I'm able to, work with a lot of different belief systems and a variety of different graves. But as you develop in your practice in relation to various spirits and many of the dead, you'll find kind of a groove that you fall into. You will find what works for you and what you're best able to communicate with the dead through. Various offerings, various prayers, various systems of spirituality. It's definitely a very lonely path until you start making those connections. But when you start making those connections, when you figure out what works for you and the dead that you're talking to, then that's when you really get into the flow of things. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot them down in the comment section below on YouTube or wherever you find this. Feel free to share this video wherever you want, as long as you give me credit. And hit that thumbs up down there. It really helps out the channel, and I really appreciate it. And comments also help as well. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.